All right, so now we're going to do the table for disjunctions for the word or. All right, and so we're going to still have our true, true, false, false for the first column, true, false, so we can get through all possibilities. And then we get the first one's going to be true or true. Obviously, we're going to have a true statement. If I have a true or false, I can pick either or. So I'm obviously going to pick the true side. So it's going to be true. If I have false or true, it's still going to be true. But if I have a false or false statement, I then finally get a false one. So notice here, the one that you have to know really well for disjunction is that false or false. False or false is always false. So it's kind of an easy way of memorizing those. And so here's an example that I was using in class. First of all, it says Mrs. G wears glasses, or she teaches geometry. Now, if you know me well, and you have to know me really well in order to understand this, I actually need reading glasses about once or twice a week when I'm really tired. So I actually do wear glasses. And I also teach geometry. So I'm going to have a true statement for that one. So that's true or true. But most of the time, by the way, I don't wear glasses. I can still see pretty good. But every once in a while, I'm really tired. I need to do that. So that's another one. And then we had one last symbol that we actually learned when we were learning how to make inverse state conditionals. It's the negation. And remember, negation means make opposite. Or that really means the word not. So you go, if the not's in, you take it out, or vice versa. And the symbol we use for that, and a lot of you will go squiggle, you know, or the similarity symbol. Remember, this means negation in this case. So here's what we mean. If I have a true proposition, if I go not Q, I automatically make it a false value. Or if I have a true proposition that's false, if I go not P, which would be not false, I know it's going to be true. Now, all these symbols are going to be really huge. We're going to use those to prove the validity of compound sentences or compound statements. And the neat thing is you just have to read your directions, and I'll tell you the validity of the proposition. You don't even have to know what the proposition is. I'll just tell you the validity of it, and you can go from there. So like for instance here, we have X and P. So we have true and true. So what's a true and true statement? Well, a true and true statement would be true. So it works pretty good. So true and true is true. Now, how do I know that? Well, remember, go back to your truth table. True and true is true. So I have that down. Then our next one is not X and P. Well, not X means not true and true. Well, not true makes that false. And if you notice, we always go left to right when we work with this. So false and true is going to end up being false. Now look at the next one. We have Y and M. Well, Y is false. So I have false and false. Well, obviously that makes that a false validity. Now notice I show work with these. It doesn't take a long time, but it helps me see the validity in the statements that we learned earlier. Here we have one for our disjunction or. So R is true. So we have true or, Z in this case is false. True or false. Or allows me to pick the true. Here we have another one. We have P or not M. So P is going to be true or not false. Well, that makes it true. So true or true is true. Then we have if R, then M. Notice I said that as a conditional statement. If R, then M. So we have R is true, then M is false. If I have a true then false conditional statement, the validity is false. So notice we just build it real quickly. I have if nar, then not, if nar, that's a new word. If not R, then not M. So that'd be not true, then not false. So that gives me if false, then true. And we know from our truth table, even though that's kind of against our instinct, it's going to be true. Now, a few things you need to know about working with the validity of statements. When we start getting some really fancy compound ones, you do inside the parentheses first, and you always work left to right, working at one logical argument at a time. So the first thing I always do is I just go ahead and I fill in all my validity. All right, I think that's not false. and false. So in the next thing, I would sit there and I'd probably change my validity, ones that I can do individually like this right away. And I go false and true, or true and false. I'm just going to do my negations as I go. But now I go left to right, inside the parentheses first. False and true. Well, that is false. But notice, oops, I put an A there instead of my and symbol. And then I look two at a time. False or true. Well, that's true. Notice this one keeps coming down. It's like order of operations. I keep adding them, I'm bringing them down together. So true and false is going to be false. All right, now let's do the same thing here. Now, one thing you need to know about negation, it does not automatically distribute and negate on the inside. This is not multiplication, this is symbolic logic. But I can use it to work with my values. I'll do it inside the parentheses first. So I have not true, then that not F, false becomes true. So if true, then true is what, my friends? Yeah, true. So I have not true, which gives me false. Now let's do the same type of idea here on number 10. Now parentheses and brackets, so again, order of operations, think grouping symbols. Here I have if M then R, so that's going to be if false then true, or not false, so you can put a true symbol there if you want. And then it goes and not false. So here I'm going to do inside my parentheses, if false then true is true, or, and that's going to be true, so I'm going to write that down next, then not false, and I'm going to go ahead and put the true there. If I have true or true, it's true. Now notice the brackets are going away because I did it inside the brackets, and then I have and true. So I end up having pretty cool a true statement. All right, we have one more page, and it's going to talk about interpreting symbols into verbal and vice versa.